Bijan and Manijeh. Just as in real life, the most precious of treasures can come from the least expected places. This is the love story of a great Persian hero named Bijan and Princess Manijeh, the daughter of an overprotective Turanian king named Afra. This tale begins in Persia under the rule of the great King Keku. King Keku is a fair and greatly admired ruler among his people. Keku's fair rule, along with a small army of devoted soldiers, maintains a great feeling of security among his people. His best soldier, Bijan, is the son of Keku's best friend from childhood, named Eve. King Keku knows that when confronted with the most difficult of tasks, Bijan's loyalty and devotion is surpassed by no one. King Keku learns of trouble in the region. The great people of Armenia were losing their crops due to wild boars. There was no better man for the job than Bijan. Keku knew that Bijan could handle this job single-handedly, along with another one of his devoted men, Gorgin, to act as a tour guide and to be in charge of the maps of the various camps and villages in which the boars were doing the most damage. Gorgin was pleased to comply, and the two of them, along with 2 strong horses, slowly but surely made their way to the Armenian people. Gorgin himself wasn't strong enough to handle the boars, but he served as a great navigator to Bijan. For this, an expected result of trust and eventually a friendship began to develop. It wasn't long before they were acting like reunited childhood friends, spending time together for the first time in a very long time. This made Gorgin very happy, as he always secretly admired Bijan and wished he were brave and strong like him. Being Bijan's eyes and sometimes ears certainly wasn't the job of a coward, but Gorgin wanted more, much more. He wanted to be recognized among the people as a brave, strong soldier like Bijan. Gorgin, in his head, could hear the people praising Bijan for being such a great soldier that he couldn't stand it any longer. Soon, what was once respect and admiration developed into jealousy and envy, a dangerous combination. In the great land of Persia, under the rule of King Keku, a delightful gathering at the palace was interrupted by the sound of dozens of soldiers. King Keku immediately knew that this unexpected visit was of a civil nature, as he identified the colorful uniforms of his Armenian neighbors. There was one gentleman standing in front of a few high-ranking officers who appeared especially anxious. "Your Majesty, this gentleman seeks your permission to enter and speak with you," King Keku's servant notified the king. Kneeling with his hands in the air, the Armenian delegate proclaimed, "Long live your Majesty. Our farms near the border are being destroyed by wild boars. We have reached a point where we just cannot handle this problem on our own. The presence of our army is overly excessive. What we need is the help of just a few wise yet strong men that can handle this problem with brawn and brains. Our lives deeply depend on these farms, and our crops are nearly completely destroyed. Can you please help us, Your Majesty?" "Gentlemen, you have heard this man. The reward will be quite generous," announced King Keku. Approaching Keku, Bijan, Give's son, said, "Your Majesty, I would be willing and honored to take this on, to handle these beasts, and save our Armenian neighbors." Your Majesty, you must ignore my well-intentioned son, interjected Bijan's father, Give. Your offer is kind and generous, but my son, Bijan, is simply too young and inexperienced for such an undertaking. He will surely get himself killed. Father, do not doubt my strength and capabilities, Bijan replied. You have taught me well, but you are forgetting that I have defeated armies in which I was greatly outnumbered. I am, after all, your son. Please have faith in me. Bijan, Keku said, I am happy that you have agreed to take on this dangerous mission. I know what you are capable of, and I am quite sure that your father is simply concerned for your well-being. Perhaps he may be less troubled if you were to bring along someone who is quite knowledgeable, someone who understands the dangerous landscape and knows the maps backwards and forwards. I believe that Gorgin would be best suited for this task. He would serve as a great companion to you as well. Hearing this, Gorgin chimed in. Your Honor, it would be my pleasure to serve you and to be of assistance to Bijan in any way necessary. Gorgin was pleasantly surprised and quite pleased by the king's kind words. Swiftly, within an hour or two, Gorgin prepared 2 of his finest horses for himself and Bijan. He was eager to be of service. Bijan, I have prepared the horses. We should be on our way before we lose any more daylight, Gorgin said. Yes, sir, my good man, or should I say, my fine tour guide, Bijan jested. Gorgin initially construed Bijan's remark to be sarcastic or even a bit insulting. However, he also understood that his job was not that of strength, but of wisdom. As a matter of fact, Gorgin was comfortable with that position as he remembered King Keku's kind words regarding his familiarity of the dangerous terrain. Within minutes, Bijan and Gorgin mounted their horses and were on their way. Now that we've made it to the border, I think that you should either cross the border with me or try to block this side of the lake and kill any boar that tries to escape, said Bijan. Oh no, Bijan, replied Gorgin. I have agreed to do this with you strictly on the grounds of my knowledge of the area. I am not putting myself in harm's way while you get all of the fame and fortune. Relax, Gorgin, said Bijan. I am only asking you to use your sword if one tries to escape. No thanks, my friend. You're on your own from here. I'll be waiting right here to help you get back safely to reap your rewards once you have completed your mission, replied Gorgin. Very well, said Bijan with a sigh of disappointment. Bijan went off to accomplish his mission to kill the wild boars that were destroying the Armenian crops, while Gorgin waited patiently. Gorgin ran Bijan's request for assistance through his mind over and over again. He began to wonder if he had acted cowardly in front of the brave Bijan by turning down his request. He also began to feel a tinge of envy for all the praise Bijan would surely receive after returning safely to Persia, having killed all of the wild boars without assistance. Gorgin also wondered if while Bijan was receiving all of the praise, he himself would be perceived as a coward by the king and all the good people of Persia. As time went on, this worried him more and more. His thoughts started to become dark and filled with rage. He knew that he could probably outsmart Bijan if necessary. Just what could he do so that when he returned to his home in Persia, he would not be viewed as a coward? It was not long before Gorgin's fears turned into a sense of confidence. Gorgin thought of the neighboring Turan under the rule of King Afra. He also thought of King Afra's beautiful daughter, Manijeh. Bijan would be irresistible to Manijeh, especially after this dangerous journey. Gorgin cooked up a foolproof plan for Bijan that would surely turn the tables. Bijan looked at Gorgin and said, "That's it. The few I did not kill ran off. They won't be back." "King Keku and your father will be proud of you, Bijan," exclaimed Gorgin. "Great work!" "Was that a touch of humility I sensed in your voice, Gorgin?" asked Bijan. "Now you're being ridiculous," replied Gorgin. "I could never physically ward off these beasts like you. Keku knows you're the best man suited for this job, and he certainly will not be disappointed. As a matter of fact, you're several days ahead of schedule. Are you aware of this?" "Yes, that's a few days sooner that these good people can leave their homes without fear, and a day or two earlier that these farmers can begin replacing their damaged crops," said Bijan. "In time that you can get some well-deserved rest," added Gorgin. "Yes, Gorgin, it's what I've always wanted to do, sleep on a rock," said Bijan. "No, you fool, not here," said Gorgin. "We're only a day's walk from a beautiful Turanian field. There are plenty of beautiful women, including King Afra's daughter, Manijeh, and her servants. Why don't you go ahead of me? I'll stay behind a half day or so and keep an eye on things here," Gorgin proposed. "I suppose I could use a bit of rest," admitted Bijan. "Are you sure this is not a problem? I have so been dreaming of Manijeh." "Bijan," Gorgin replied, "everyone will probably think we are still en route to the border. They would never suspect that you've already completed the task. The way I see it, you could spend a couple of days there and no one would ever know. You've put your life on the line. At the very least, you deserve some time for yourself. Go. I will just be a few hours behind you. Go." "Okay, you've twisted my arm. I will go then. Thank you, Gorgin," said Bijan as he left. "You're welcome, my friend," answered Gorgin. Little did Bijan know that Gorgin's intentions were less than honorable. Gorgin knew that King Afra would not stand for a Persian storming into town to see his daughter. He also knew that Bijan would certainly be imprisoned or even put to death at the hand of King Afra. Gorgin had to prepare a good story that King Keku and Bijan's father, Give, would surely believe. Gorgin knew that he must return to Persia with Bijan's horse and a very convincing explanation as to Bijan's whereabouts. Several hours later, Bijan, on foot, was just a few yards from Manijeh's tent. Not having much further to go, Bijan was spotted by several people at the campsite, including the beautiful Princess Manijeh. Manijeh turned to her old nanny and said, "Please, find out who this handsome man is. He is so strong and young. Perhaps he is a prince." "Yes, my lady, I will find out for you," Manijeh's nanny replied. The old nanny delicately approached Bijan and stated, "Excuse me, sir. My lady, Princess Manijeh, wants to know who you are and what brings you here." "I am Bijan, Giv's son from Persia. I came to the border to fight the wild boars who have been destroying the crops there. I have now completed my task. When I learned of this beautiful camp, I did not want to immediately go home to my father, Give. I have been dreaming of Manijeh. Please, take me to her." "Allow me to speak with her," the nanny said. The nanny returned to Manijeh's tent to tell her the news as Bijan slowly followed behind her. "Your Highness, this man is so handsome indeed. His name is Bijan, and he surely is the man of your dreams." As Bijan slowly approached Manijeh's tent and she laid eyes on him, Manijeh said, "So, Bijan, tell me about yourself." Bijan began, "You already know who I am. I have come here only to see you. I was told by a good friend that you are here and that you are quite beautiful. My eyes do not deceive me. I am actually here and you are really in front of me, and you are indeed every bit as beautiful as I have dreamed." "Oh, you are such a kind gentleman," Manijeh replied. "Please, allow me to bring you something to drink." At this time, Gorgin was untying Bijan's horse and sneaking off. Although Manijeh's intentions were to not allow Bijan to leave anytime soon, she also meant no harm to come to him. However, she realized that Bijan was most likely much too responsible to stay. In fear that Bijan would leave her in just a day or so, she had to figure out a way for him to follow her back to the great palace. Perhaps her father, King Afra, would order him to stay with her. Either way, Bijan had to go back to the palace, with or without the king's blessing. Manijeh continued to pour him more wine. They laughed and danced all through the day and night. It was not long before Bijan was completely worn out and collapsed of total exhaustion. While Bijan was asleep, Manijeh ordered her servants to carry him back to King Afra's palace. She quietly had them place him on a bed to continue his much-needed rest. Upon waking and holding his head in pain, Bijan murmured, "My God, where am I? What day is it? Where is my horse?" Manijeh quickly jumped up and whispered, "Hush, relax, Bijan. You are safe with me. Forget about all of the silly fighting. Sometimes men fight and sometimes they love. They are capable of both, you know." "Manijeh, you don't understand," said Bijan. "I must report back to Persia and King Keku to tell him I have completed his mission. It will be difficult to get out of here without being seen. What about my father? I must return at once." "No, you can't leave right now," Manijeh replied. "I am sure your horse is fine, and King Keku can wait a while more. Why are you in such a hurry?" "I need to get back soon. People will worry about me. My friend, Gorgin, will not know what to say if I do not return with him," said Bijan. "Please relax, Bijan. Everything will be just fine," Manijeh exclaimed. In the meantime, one of King Afra's soldiers heard Bijan's voice as he argued with Manijeh and proceeded to investigate on behalf of King Afra. The soldier approached King Afra and stated, "Your Majesty, your daughter Manijeh is with a young Persian man by the name of Bijan." "Thank you, young man," King Afra replied. "You have done well. Now, do just one more thing for me and send my brother Garsivaz to me at once." "Yes, your Majesty," the soldier replied. King Afra turned to his brother Garsivaz and said, "My good brother, please go and find out about this crazy Persian Bijan and what it is he wants with my daughter. Let him know that he will surely lose his life if I don't like the answer." King Afra's devoted brother Garsivaz will certainly discover Bijan's intentions. He knows this could mean trouble, so he quickly rounds up some of his soldiers and instructs them to block all exits from the palace. As Garsivaz entered the room from which he heard the voices, and as he approached the curtain surrounding the bed, he pulled the curtain to the side and reproached Bijan. "You filthy, stupid young man! There is no way out for you now." Bijan quickly chimed in, "No, sir, you don't understand. My name is Bijan, Bijan from Persia." "I know who you are and where you are from," said Garsivaz. "Please understand that I mean no harm. I am an honest man," Bijan exclaimed as he drew his dagger. "I am a great warrior. I was commissioned by King Keku to destroy all of the wild boars at the border. I did so single-handedly. I did not disappoint my king. I killed those wild beasts myself and have come here only to rest and not with any harmful intentions." Garsivaz immediately backed down when he realized who he was dealing with. However, he knew he must take Bijan to his brother King Afra right away. He calmly reasoned with him while one of the soldiers slowly took him from behind and slipped handcuffs on him as Bijan's dagger slipped to the floor. "Why are you doing this?" Bijan asked. "I have done nothing wrong. I must return home to Persia. What are you doing?" Garsivaz responded, "Before you can go anywhere, you must explain yourself to King Afra and answer for being here alone with his daughter Manijeh." Hearing this, Manijeh drew near. "You foolish man! Uncle Garsivaz, you cannot take him to my father. My father will have him killed. Please, I beg you." Garsivaz responded, "Hush, Manijeh. Your father is a reasonable man. He will listen to your story." And they departed to King Afra's palace, where in the king's private quarters stood the king himself, Princess Manijeh, Garsivaz, a few soldiers, and Bijan. "Father, please!" cried Manijeh. "Silence, young lady," King Afra asserted. "Allow your friend to explain himself." Bijan approached King Afra. "Your Majesty, you have the right to be angry. You must understand that I did not come to your palace by choice. Manijeh's servants carried me from the campsite as I was exhausted from the journey and from battling the wild boars at the border." "If your duty was at the border," King Afra continued, "how then did you end up at the campsite? I believe I know the answer to that question. Your sole business at the Turanian campsite was my daughter, Manijeh, wasn't it?" Bijan admitted, "Yes, it's true. I was told that you have a beautiful daughter. I came here just to meet her, but I did not expect to fall asleep, and I certainly did not expect to be carried off to your palace. Please, believe me, I did not come here to bring harm to anyone." "Young man," King Afra said, "I'm afraid today is not your lucky day. I believe you came here from Persia to fight and create a big name for yourself. However, now you are as weak as a little boy. If your Majesty would like to see me fight, supply me with a horse and sword. I will fight all of your men," said Bijan in response. "If I could handle 100 wild boars, I can certainly handle a handful of your soldiers." King Afra swiftly replied, "Garsivaz, get this fool out of here. We must set an example for all Persians in order to prevent anything like this from happening again. Take him to be hanged. We shall see if any Persians dare to set foot in Turan again." Piran, an old Turanian wise man, arrived at the scene to investigate the situation further. Piran spotted Garsivaz and slowly approached him. "Garsivaz, what is going on here? For whom is the gallows?" asked Piran. Garsivaz replied, "A young Persian named Bijan has a date with the gallows. We now know the real story of what brings him here." Garsivaz and some of his soldiers had surrounded Manijeh's quarters, blocking all the exits. Piran approached King Afra's palace on horse, bowed, and tried to reason with him. "Your Greatness, in the past I had suggested you spare the Persian hero Siavash from death. You did not take my advice, and you executed him. Now, if you kill Bijan, there will be bloodshed between the Persians and the Turanians. They will certainly seek revenge. Please, Your Majesty, heed my advice this time. Do not kill Bijan. Simply imprison him in a well. The Persians will certainly learn their lesson." King Afra turned to his brother Garsivaz and gave the order. "Garsivaz, put this Persian Bijan in a well at once." Garsivaz and his men took Bijan to a well and lowered him down slowly, as Manijeh could do nothing more than watch helplessly. Manijeh would frequently bring him food and water. More than a week went by. Gorgin decided to return to Persia with the fabricated story as to the whereabouts of Bijan. It had to sound convincing, as it was Gorgin's goal to appear as the ultimate hero to the Persian people. When Gorgin arrived at King Keku's palace, holding the tusks of a wild boar, Giv waited anxiously for news of his son. Gorgin had run the story over and over in his head, the one he'd been practicing every day for 2 weeks. Finally, the time had come for Gorgin to tell his story about Bijan. "Gorgin, where is my son?" asked Giv. "Why do you have his horse? What has happened to Bijan?" "Giv, your son was very brave, and we worked so hard, but in the end, a large lion attacked him from behind," Gorgin replied. "You are lying!" cried Giv. "I speak the truth, I swear," Gorgin said. Giv turned to King Keku, and the king ordered, "Men, put this man in prison." The king's men dragged Gorgin away from the palace. King Keku then turned to Give and said, "Don't worry. When the time is right, I will tell you exactly what has become of your son." "Thank you, Your Highness," said Give. It was now the new year. King Keku knew that now was the right time to consult the magic cup known as the Jamajam. King Keku could see all with the Jamajam. He looked deeply into the magic cup to find out exactly what had become of Bijan. King Keku was pleased to give Bijan's father, Give, the good news. "I know that your son, Bijan, is alive," King Keku said. "Oh, thank you, Your Highness." Give breathed a sigh of relief. "Where is he?" he asked. "Bijan is alive. I see a Turanian girl crying, and it seems that Bijan has been taken captive and is in the bottom of a well in Turan," said the king. "A well? But why?" Give asked. "I am not certain, but we will save your son. I assure you of that," King Keku pledged. "How? How can we find him and save him?" asked Give. "There is only one man, I believe, who can take on this task, and that is Rostam," Keku said. "You must go to Rostam and let him know what has happened to your son. I will write a letter for you to give to him." "But will this work?" Give asked. "Rostam is a great warrior and a good man. He will know what to do," King Keku responded. And King Keku wrote the letter. Give took the king's order to Rostam. They met somewhere between Persia and Zabul in Rostam's native land. Handing the letter to Rostam, Give said, "My dear friend Rostam, my son Bijan is in trouble. Please read this letter from King Keku. It explains everything." Rostam took the letter, read it, and said, "Give, with God's help, I will deliver King Keku's order and bring your dear son, Bijan, back alive." "Thank you, Rostam. I will be forever in your debt," said Give. Rostam followed Give back to King Keku's palace. He wanted to address King Keku personally and assure him that he would do everything in his power to return Bijan back to him. Speaking with King Keku in his palace, Rostam declared, "Long live your majesty with God as your protector." The king then replied, "Ah, my dear Rostam, my hero, you shall have all you will need, horses, soldiers, weapons, anything at all." Rostam then said, "As always, I am at your service, your majesty. I will take on this task, and with God's willingness, I will carry out your order." When Gorgin got word in prison that Rostam was going to Turan to save Bijan, he sent a messenger to Rostam with a desperate message asking for forgiveness. Upon receiving this message, Rostam sent his reply to Gorgin and told the messenger, "Tell Gorgin that he is a coward and that he must pay for his actions. If, and only if, I can save Bijan, will I consider asking King Keku to show mercy on him." "Yes, Rostam, I will deliver your message at once," the messenger replied. Rostam was seen procuring last-minute details with King Keku by his side. "My dear friend, King Keku said to Rostam, I am worried that King Afra will have no mercy on Bijan. He may kill him. How will you accomplish the task of returning him to Persia alive and safe?" "Your Majesty, I've been giving this a great deal of thought, and I think it is best to go there as a merchant with gold and jewelry," responded Rostam. King Keku immediately commanded his servants to give Rostam anything he may need, including soldiers to assist him in accomplishing this undertaking. King Keku's servants provided Rostam and his men with all the necessary articles to pose as merchants, and Rostam, together with his small army and posing merchants, began their journey towards Turan. Reaching the Turan border, Rostam addressed his soldiers. "Men, I will proceed with the other warriors. Stay here at the border, and I will send for you when the time comes." Rostam knew that he had to make it look good for this to work. He proceeded past the border with 6 warriors, 8 horses, and 10 camels, along with cargo containing merchandise provided by King Keku. Rostam was pleased to confront Piran, the old Turanian wise man who did not recognize Rostam dressed as a merchant. "Where are you coming from, my good man?" asked Piran. "I am a merchant from Persia who comes to Turan to sell some goods," replied Rostam. "Ah, I see," said Piran. "Allow me to help you. I will prepare a camp for you and your comrades." "Thank you very much," replied Rostam. "You are quite welcome, my friend," Piran answered. By the time Piran prepared the camp for Rostam and his men, word had spread throughout Turan that there was a market in town from Persia. All Turanians came to the market to buy goods. When King Afra's daughter, Manijeh, heard of the Persian market, she ran to the market in desperate appeal for Rostam's help. Her gaze implored Rostam as she pleaded, "Please, can you save Bijan? He is in a well. Who can save him? Who can help him? Please, somebody! Will you help Bijan?" "Who are you?" asked Rostam. "I am Princess Manijeh, King Afra's daughter." "I see," said Rostam. "Who is this Bijan you speak of?" "Bijan is Giv's son. He and I fell in love. My father became angry and has punished and imprisoned him in a well. Please help him," Manijeh pleaded. "I'm afraid I don't know your friend Bijan," said Rostam. "What has happened to all the good Persians? What is the matter with you? Why won't you help? I am in pain, and Bijan also suffers in the well," said Manijeh. "Well, princess, I suggest that you speak with your father and ask him to have mercy on this Bijan," said Rostam. "In the meantime, here is some food for your friend in the well." Rostam handed Princess Manijeh a roasted chicken to bring to Bijan. What Manijeh did not realize was that Rostam had hidden his ring with the roasted chicken. Rostam knew that Bijan would recognize his ring. This would surely send Bijan a message of hope. At the well, Manijeh lowered the basket with the roasted chicken to Bijan and said, "My dear Bijan, I could not sneak food from the palace for you, as my father would catch me. A kind merchant from Persia gave me this food to bring to you." "Thank you, Manijeh. I am so very hungry." Bijan opened the food basket and saw Rostam's ring hidden in the chicken and laughed as relief washed over him. Puzzled, Manijeh asked, "Bijan, why are you laughing? What is so funny?" Bijan replied, "What is so funny? I am laughing from joy. I think my problem is about to be resolved. Manijeh, if you promise to say nothing, I will tell you." Manijeh responded, "Do you not trust me now? I gave you everything I could." "No, you must listen to me," said Bijan. "That so-called merchant from Persia is actually here to save me. I am sure that my father and King Keku have sent him. Manijeh, please go to him and ask him if his horse's name is Rakhsh. He will understand." "Yes, I will go now," said Manijeh. Princess Manijeh immediately returned to the Persian market to speak with the generous man to ask about his horse. "My kind sir," began Manijeh, "I'm afraid I don't know your name, but Bijan has asked me to ask you if your horse is named Rakhsh, and if so, what does this mean?" "Indeed, young princess, my horse is named Rakhsh. Bijan knows now why I am here. I was sent by the great King Keku and Bijan's father Giv. Listen carefully. My men and I must locate the well. Tonight, Manijeh, you must build a fire next to the well where Bijan is imprisoned." "Yes, of course. I will do this tonight. But just who are you? What is your name?" asked Manijeh. "I am Rostam, the Persian warrior. Do not worry, young princess. I will save Bijan, but first, you must build that fire." Manijeh ran off swiftly to comply with Rostam's request. As the sun began to set, Manijeh made her way over to the well to tell Bijan the plan. She neatly set several pieces of dry wood into a pile. As the sun continued to set, Manijeh lit the fire and hid. She patiently watched and waited for Rostam and his army to appear. Rostam and the 6 warriors arrived at the site of the well. "Okay, men, now that we are here, move this giant rock that blocks the well. We will need full access to pull Bijan from this well." The 6 strong warriors tried to move the rock, but were unsuccessful. Rostam turned to God for help and prayed for strength. Within a few moments, with God's help, Rostam was able to move the rock single-handedly. Rostam and the other men then pulled Bijan from the well as Manijeh watched in joy. Rostam asked Bijan, "How are you? How did this happen?" Bijan replied, "I am fine now. This was all Gorgin's doing." Rostam added, "God has blessed you with a caring father and a fair and thoughtful king. You must show the same mercy on Gorgin and not seek revenge." "Rostam," Bijan said, "if it weren't for Gorgin, I wouldn't be here. He has done this to me, and he knew the wrath of King Afra, but he tricked me nevertheless." Rostam replied, "Bijan, I know what Gorgin has done. However, I ask you to forgive him." Grateful to Rostam, Bijan said, "I am so happy to see you and to finally be free. Therefore, I promise you I will not seek revenge against Gorgin." Rostam removed Bijan's handcuffs, and Bijan said, "My dear Rostam, I apologize for putting you through all of this trouble." "Nonsense," replied Rostam. "You have a father that truly loves you. Speaking of someone that loves you, you should now go with Princess Manijeh. I will deal with King Afra's army." Rostam arrived to King Afra's palace. "Wake up! It is me, Rostam, the Persian hero. This is no time to sleep. I have freed Bijan from your prison. Don't you know this is your future son-in-law? How dare you do such a thing?" Rostam did everything possible to disturb the palace while King Afra prepared his army. "Men, you must catch every one of them. Do not let them escape," King Afra commanded. Both armies were ready to fight. However, King Afra began to worry as he looked at Rostam's entire army, which had been hiding at the border. The king realized that his army would not survive this battle and ordered a retreat. Rostam had succeeded and was ready to return to Persia. He did so and was greeted by a parade that celebrated his victory. King Keku and Giv offered their thanks to God for sparing Bijan and for giving Rostam the strength he needed. King Keku then drew towards Bijan and said, "Bijan, now go and make this beautiful young lady your wife. It's time for healing now." Bijan swiftly made his way to Manijeh, and from that day forward, Bijan and Manijeh lived happily ever after.